Chester's heart sank as he watched Claire slip off her engagement ring and tuck it into her purse, her fingers lingering as if hiding a secret. She smiled, kissed him goodbye, and left for work, the door clicking shut. In that quiet moment, a crack formed in the life he thought they shared, a doubt that would unravel everything. The morning light spilled through the bay window of Chester and Claire's apartment in the small town of Briarwood, painting the hardwood floor with soft gold. Chester stood at the stove, flipping pancakes, the sizzle of familiar rhythm in their cozy kitchen. At 35, he was a man of quiet loyalty, his broad shoulders relaxed in a faded flannel, his green eyes warm but thoughtful behind a neatly trimmed beard. A carpenter by trade, Chester built furniture with care, finding solace in the grain of wood, each piece a promise of permanence. But lately, permanence felt uncertain, a shadow cast by the woman he'd promised to marry. Claire sat at the table, her auburn hair tied back, her phone buzzing as she sipped coffee. At 32, she was a paralegal at a bustling law firm, her sharp mind and quick laugh the spark that had drawn Chester 4 years ago. Their engagement, sealed with a simple gold ring last spring, had been a quiet joy, a picnic by the river, her hand in his, dreams of a small wedding and a home with a garden. But now, as autumn painted Briarwood's maples red, Chester noticed a change, subtle but persistent. Claire never wore her ring to work. He'd first seen it a month ago, a fleeting moment that stuck. She'd come home late, her purse slung on the counter, and when she reached for a glass, her left hand was bare. "Long day," she'd said, her smile tired, and Chester had nodded, assuming she'd taken it off for practicality. But the pattern repeated. Mornings where she'd slip the ring off before leaving, evenings where it stayed in her purse, a silent absence that gnawed at him. This morning, as he plated pancakes, he watched her again, her fingers tucking the ring away, her movements deliberate, almost secretive. "Claire," he said, his voice gentle, setting a plate before her. "Your ring, you don't wear it to work anymore?" The question hung, soft but pointed, his eyes searching hers. Claire froze, her fork hovering, her hazel eyes flickering with something. Guilt? Surprise? "Oh, this," she trailed off, her laugh thin. "It's just safer home. Papers, files, you know." She met his gaze, her smile quick, but it didn't reach her eyes. Chester nodded, his chest tightening, the answer a pebble in a still pond, rippling doubt across his heart. The unease was a seed, sprouting in the quiet moments. Chester sipped his coffee, the bitterness grounding him, his internal monologue a murmur. "It's nothing. She's busy, that's all. She loves me." But the ring's absence was a question mark, and Claire's vagueness, her late nights, her distracted glances, added weight. She'd been working longer hours, her phone a constant hum of texts she'd angle away from him. "Big case," she'd say, her voice bright but clipped, and Chester would smile, trusting her ambition, her drive. Now, her words felt like a script, and trust felt fragile. He drove to his workshop, a converted barn on Briarwood's edge. The radio's folk tune a faint comfort. The town streets were alive with autumn. Kids kicking leaves, shop windows glowing. But Chester's mind was elsewhere, replaying Claire's hesitation. Oh, this, why hadn't she explained? The ring was simple, no gem to snag, no reason to remove it. His fingers tightened on the wheel, a flicker of fear. Was she pulling away? He pushed it down, clinging to hope. She'd worn it at dinner last week, her hand in his, her laugh rail. Maybe it was stress, nothing more. At the workshop, the scent of sawdust and varnish was a balm. Chester sanded a walnut table, his hands steady, but his thoughts churned. His friend Milo, a fellow carpenter with a gruff warmth, noticed his silence. "You good, Chet?" he asked, wiping stain from his hands, his gray ponytail swinging. Chester hesitated, then shared a sliver. "Claire's been off, not wearing her ring to work." Milo's brow furrowed, his voice low. "That's odd. You talked to her?" Chester nodded, his jaw tight. She brushed it off. I don't know. Milo clapped his shoulder. Ask again. Don't let it fester. The advice was a spark, but Chester wasn't ready. The fear of what he'd find too heavy. Back home, the unease grew. Claire was out, her team meetings stretching past 8. Chester tidied the kitchen, his eyes catching on her purse, left open on the counter. Guilt pricked him, but curiosity won. He glanced inside, spotting the ring, nestled in a side pocket. His heart sank, the gold band a silent accusation. Why hide it? He closed the purse, his hands shaking, and sat on the couch, the apartment's quiet await. She's my fiancée. She wouldn't lie, but the doubt was a tide, pulling him under. He opened his laptop, a reflex from years of solving problems, and checked their shared calendar. Claire's meetings were vague. Times, no names, no locations. Her social media, usually vibrant, was sparse. Her recent post generic, a coffee cup, a sunset, nothing personal. A memory surfaced. Last month, she'd come home smelling faintly of cologne, her excuse a crowded elevator. He believed her, but now, the pieces formed a pattern he couldn't ignore. Was she hiding something, or someone? Chester's internal monologue was a plea and a vow. I love you, Claire, but I need the truth. I'll watch. I'll wait, but I won't stay blind. He began noting her absences, her excuses, a quiet investigation born of loyalty and fear. Hope flickered. She'd kissed him this morning, her touch warm. But disappointment loomed, her ring's absence a symbol of a deeper rift. The audience could feel his tension, the slow unraveling of a man caught between trust and doubt, his heart a battlefield. As night fell, Chester stood by the window, Briarwood's streetlights glowing through the maples. Claire's key turned in the lock, her voice calling, I'm home. He turned, his smile practiced, his eyes sharp. Good day, he asked, his voice even. Exhausting, she said, her laugh light, her purse clutched close. Chester nodded, the ring's absence a silent question, his resolve hardening. The crack in their life was widening, and Chester, thoughtful and loyal, was ready to peer inside, his scars forming as he braced for the truth. The Briarwood streets were cloaked in the hush of late October, the maples shedding crimson leaves that crunched underfoot. Chester stood in his workshop, the scent of pine and lacquer sharp in the air, his hands sanding a cedar chair with a rhythm that belied the storm in his chest. 2 weeks had passed since he'd asked Claire about her unworn engagement ring. Her vague response, oh, it's safer at home, a splinter that refused to dislodge. At 35, Chester's thoughtful loyalty was fraying, his green eyes shadowed with unease as subtle red flags multiplied, each one a thread in a tapestry of doubt. The audience could feel the slow burn of his suspicion, a quiet unraveling that tightened with every glance Claire averted. Chester's emotional tension was a constant hum, a low-frequency ache that colored his days. Claire's behavior had shifted, the changes small but cumulative, like cracks in a foundation. She'd come home late 3 times this week, her purse clutched tight, her auburn hair slightly mussed, her excuses thin. Client ran long, she'd say, or traffic was brutal. Her hazel eyes skittering away from his, a flicker of something, guilt perhaps, beneath her smile. Her phone, once left carelessly on the counter, was now a guarded relic, its screen tilted away, its notifications silenced. Chester noticed her thumb hesitating over texts, her fingers quick to lock the device when he entered the room. Each act was a pebble, building a wall between them. At home, the apartment felt smaller, its warmth dimmed. Chester's internal monologue was a churn of hope and dread. She's stressed, that's all. Work's intense. But why the secrets? He'd watch her move through their space, her laughter forced, her touches fleeting. Last night, she'd come home at 9, smelling faintly of wine. Her explanation, a team dinner, lacking detail. Chester had nodded, his jaw tight, his heart a tangle of love and suspicion. The ring, still tucked in her purse, was a silent accusation, its absence a question he couldn't voice. "Why don't you wear it, Claire? Where are you hiding?" The emotional peak came at a quiet dinner, a scene steeped in tension. Chester had cooked roast chicken, mashed potatoes, a bottle of red, a bid to reclaim their rhythm. The kitchen table was set with care, candles flickering, their glow casting Claire's face in soft relief. She sat across from him, her paralegal's poise intact, but her eyes darted to her phone, buzzing softly in her lap. "Good day," Chester asked, his voice gentle, probing, his fork pausing over his plate. Claire's smile was quick, her gaze flicking to the candle. "Busy. You know how it is." Her words were a dodge, and Chester's chest tightened, the air thick with unspoken truths. He tried again, his tone light but deliberate. "That case still keeping you late?" Claire's fingers tightened around her glass, her laugh a touch too bright. "Yeah, it's a beast. Partners are riding us hard." She didn't look at him, her eyes on the flame, and Chester felt the distance, a chasm widening with each evasion. The phone buzzed again, and she silenced it, her hand swift, her smile strained. "Sorry, work group chat," she said, but the lie hung heavy, a shadow on the table. Chester nodded, his appetite gone, his green eyes sharp behind his beard. "You're not telling me something, Claire. I see it now." The dinner stretched, their conversation stilted, the clink of cutlery a metronome to their silence. Chester's heart ached, the memory of their engagement. A riverside picnic, her hand trembling as he slid the ring on, now a distant echo. He wanted to ask, to demand why she hid her phone, why her ring stayed off, but the words caught, his loyalty warring with his fear. Instead, he withdrew, his responses shorter, his smiles practiced. "This is great, Chet," Claire said, her voice warm, but it felt like a performance, a script to keep him at bay. He murmured thanks, his gaze on his plate, his emotional retreat a quiet act of self-preservation. The audience could feel the suspense, the slow drip of doubt in Chester's small gestures, his fingers brushing the table where her ring should have rested, the way he paused at the sink, staring at her purse. Back at the workshop, Milo, his carpenter friend, sensed the shift. "You're quieter than usual," Milo said, his gray ponytail swinging as he planed a board. Chester hesitated, his hands still. "Claire's different. Late nights, vague answers. It's probably nothing." Milo's eyes narrowed, his voice gruff. "Trust your gut, Chet. People don't hide for no reason." The words were a spark, and Chester nodded, his suspicion hardening, his hope a fragile thread. Claire's social media offered more red flags. Chester, alone one evening, scrolled her profiles, finding curated posts, office coffee, sunset run, but no mention of him, no trace of their life. A new follower, Jennifer Law, caught his eye, a coworker she'd never mentioned, his comments on her post too familiar, too frequent. Chester's stomach churned, the name a clue he filed away, his carpenter's precision turning to investigation. He began tracking her hours, noting her meetings that didn't align with her firm's schedule, her car parked late at the office lot when he drove by. Each detail was a weight, pulling him toward a truth he wasn't ready to face. His emotional withdrawal deepened, a quiet shift the audience could sense. Chester stopped initiating plans, his mornings silent as he cooked alone, his evenings spent in the workshop, sanding wood to calm his mind. Claire noticed, her touches lingering, her voice softer. "You okay, Chet?" she asked one night, her hand on his arm, her eyes searching. He looked at her, the woman he'd loved, and felt a pang. Hope that she'd explain, disappointment that she wouldn't. "Just tired," he said, his voice flat, his heart closing. She nodded, her relief palpable, and Chester saw it. She wanted him placated, not present. As the week ended, Chester stood in the apartment, the maples outside swaying in the wind, their leaves a carpet of red. Claire was out. Her team drinks, another vague excuse. He opened his journal, a leather-bound book he'd started, and wrote, "She's hiding something. I'm not blind anymore." The act was a vow, his suspicion a lens sharpening every detail. He'd watch, wait, gather clues, but not confront. Not yet. The audience could feel the suspense, the slow burn of a man teetering on the edge of truth, his loyalty fraying, his strength stirring. Chester closed the journal, the apartment's silence a mirror to his resolve, and prepared to unravel the mystery of Claire's unworn ring, step by careful step. The Briarwood apartment was cloaked in the dim glow of a single lamp, the November rain tapping a restless rhythm against the windows. Chester sat on the couch, his broad shoulders hunched, his green eyes fixed on Claire's tablet, left unlocked on the coffee table. 3 weeks had deepened his unease, the unworn engagement ring a silent alarm, amplified by Claire's late nights, hidden phone, and evasive glances. At 35, Chester's thoughtful loyalty was a fraying thread, his carpenter's precision now a tool to unearth the truth. Tonight, a clue had surfaced, a jagged edge that forced a confrontation, its aftermath leaving him raw with confusion, hurt, and betrayal. The discovery came by chance, a moment that shifted everything. Claire was in the shower, her purse on the counter, her tablet screen glowing with an open messaging app. Chester, tidying the kitchen, hesitated, guilt warring with necessity. The red flags, her absences, her guarded phone, the cologne scent, the _Morgan_law comments, had built a case he couldn't ignore. He glanced at the tablet, his heart pounding, and saw a chat with James M., a name matching her co-worker's profile. The latest message, sent an hour ago, read, "Missed you at the bar. Tomorrow night." Claire's reply was a heart emoji, a small symbol that cracked Chester's world. He scrolled, his breath shallow, the audience feeling the weight of each word. Earlier messages were intimate. "You make work bearable," from James. "Can't wait to see you," from Claire. A photo, sent last week, showed them at a restaurant, Claire's smile radiant, her left hand bare. The evidence was a blade, slicing through Chester's hope, confirming an affair, or something close. His internal monologue was a storm. She's cheating. With James. How long? Why? The ring's absence, her lies about team meetings, her guarded glances, they formed a picture he couldn't unsee. But doubt lingered. Was it emotional, physical, or both? He needed her to say it. Chester waited, his resolve hardening, the tablet dark beside him. Claire emerged, her auburn hair damp, her sweatshirt loose, her hazel eyes catching his stare. "You're up late," she said, her voice light, but her smile faltered as she saw his expression. Chester stood, his voice calm but taut, a carpenter measuring his cut. "Claire, we need to talk." He gestured to the couch, his gaze steady, his heart a drumbeat. She sat, her hands twisting, her eyes darting to the tablet. "What's wrong?" she asked, her tone wary, a crack in her poise. He took a breath, his words deliberate, each one heavy with hurt. "I saw your messages with James. The bar, the photo, the hearts. You're not just working late, are you?" His voice trembled, the question a plea and an accusation. Claire's face paled, her hands gripping her knees, her eyes wide with panic. "Chet, it's not," she started, but he cut her off, his tone still calm, its intensity a quiet fire. "Don't lie, Claire. I've seen you hide your phone, dodge my questions, leave your ring off. I deserve the truth. Who is he to you?" The silence was a chasm, the rain's patter the only sound. Claire's eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking. "James is a friend. We got close at work. It's been stressful, and he listens." She looked away, her words partial, a half-truth that stung. "It's not what you think, Chet. I swear." Her plea was desperate, but her avoidance, no mention of the photo, the emoji, the bar, was a betrayal in itself. Chester's chest ached, his love for her clashing with the evidence. "A friend doesn't make you smile like that," he said, his voice low, raw. "You're hiding something, Claire. Why can't you just tell me?" She stood, pacing, her tears falling. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, her voice a whisper. "It's complicated. Work's been. I needed someone to talk to." Her words were a dodge, admitting closeness but not the depth, leaving Chester in a fog of confusion. "I needed you," he said, his voice rising, the hurt spilling over. "I'm your fiancée, Claire. I've been here, waiting, while you're out with him, hiding our ring like it means nothing." His hands shook, the ring's absence a symbol of her withdrawal, his loyalty a wound she'd cut. Claire reached for him, her hand trembling. "I love you, Chet. I do. It's not. I haven't crossed that line." Her eyes begged belief, but the vagueness, what line, was a wall. Chester stepped back, his voice steady, though his heart cracked. "I don't know what to believe, Claire. You're not telling me everything, and that's breaking us." The words hung, a line drawn, his pain a mirror to her secrecy. She sank onto the couch, sobbing, but offered no more, her silence a confirmation of something deeper, hidden still. Chester's emotions were a maelstrom, hurt at her betrayal, confusion at her half-truths, betrayal at her choice to turn to James. The audience could feel his devastation in his clenched jaw, the way he stared at the tablet, its messages a ghost in the room. "She loves me, but she's lying. What's she protecting?" His internal monologue cried, the partial admission a tease of truth, leaving him grasping. He wanted to shake her, demand the full story, but his dignity held him back, his carpenter's patience a shield. He walked to the window, the rain blurring Briarwood's lights, his reflection a man on the edge. "I need time," he said, his voice low, not turning to her. "I can't do this if you're not honest." Claire's sobs followed, but she didn't speak, her silence a choice. Chester's heart was a wreckage, but a spark of resolve flickered. He'd find the rest, uncover what she hid, not for her, but for himself. The turning point was clear. The messages were a clue, not the whole truth, and Chester, scarred but awake, would dig deeper. He left the room, the lamp's glow fading behind him, Claire's cries a distant echo. The audience could sense the suspense, the partial truth a hook pulling them forward, Chester's pain a universal ache. He opened his journal, writing, "She's slipping away, but I won't break." The confrontation had cracked the facade, but the full truth waited, a shadow he'd chase. Chester closed the journal, the rain a steady drum, his resolve a quiet fire, ready to face whatever lay hidden in Claire's unworn ring. The Briarwood sky was a heavy quilt of gray, the November wind rattling the bare maples outside Chester's workshop. He stood at his workbench, planing a slab of oak, the rhythmic scrape a tether to his unraveling world. A week had passed since his confrontation with Claire, her tearful half-truth. "James is a friend. We got close." A jagged wound that bled out. At 35, Chester's thoughtful loyalty was a battered shield, his green eyes behind his beard sharp with purpose as he chased the full truth. His investigation, driven by hurt and resolve, had unearthed a devastating reality. Claire was romantically involved with James Morgan, hiding her engagement out of shame and indecision. The revelation was a crucible, forcing Chester to face his pain and make a wrenching decision. Chester's investigation was a quiet descent, his carpenter's precision turned detective. After the confrontation, Claire's behavior grew cautious. She wore the ring at home, her smiles forced, but her late nights persisted, her phone still guarded. Chester, sleeping on the couch to distance himself, wrestled with guilt but pressed on. He borrowed Milo's old laptop, using it to access Claire's work email via a shared account she'd forgotten to unlink. Late at night, with Claire asleep, he found a thread with James Morgan, a senior attorney at her firm. The messages, spanning months, were a gut punch. "I feel alive with you," Claire wrote. Leave the ring off. It's easier, James replied. A dinner receipt, attached in one email, showed a date Chester remembered, her team meeting last month, spent at a Camelot bistro with James. The full truth crystallized when Chester, heart-pounding, checked Claire's cloud backups, a digital vault she hadn't secured. A photo album labeled Work held images of her and James, hand in hand at a park, kissing in a car, her ring absent, her smile radiant. A draft email, never sent, was the final blow. James, I love you, but Chester's so good to me. I don't know how to choose. The words were a sledgehammer, confirming she'd been seeing James romantically for months, hiding her engagement to avoid judgment at work and her own indecision about leaving Chester. The audience could feel the betrayal, her shame a mirror to his pain, her indecision a theft of his trust. Chester's emotional reaction was a tidal wave, crashing in the workshop silence. He gripped the workbench, his knuckles white, his breath ragged. She loves him. She's been lying, living two lives. The memories, her proposal yes by the river, her laughter in their kitchen, were tainted, a house built on sand. Hurt surged, a raw ache for the woman he'd planned a future with, now a stranger who'd chosen James's thrill over his steadiness. Anger followed, a slow burn at her cowardice, hiding the ring to keep her options open, stringing him along. I was her safety net, his internal monologue seethed, while she built a life without me. Yet, love lingered, a stubborn ember, making the truth harder to bear. His internal struggle was a battlefield, the audience sensing its weight in his trembling hands as he sanded wood, his eyes distant. Should he forgive her? Claire's tears during their confrontation, her claim, I haven't crossed that line, had been a lie, but her love for him, however conflicted, felt real in moments. Could he salvage their engagement, demand she cut James off, rebuild trust? The idea was a flicker of hope, a vision of their garden, their wedding, but it crumbled against the reality. She'd chosen secrecy, betrayal, shame. Walking away was the other path, a severing of 4 years, a leap into loneliness. Chester's loyalty screamed to fight, but his dignity whispered to let go, the choice a knife twisting in his chest. Milo, his carpenter friend, became his anchor. Over coffee at the workshop, Chester shared the truth, his voice low, raw. Claire's been seeing someone at work. Loves him, maybe. Hid the ring to hide us. Milo's gray ponytail swung as he leaned forward, his eyes fierce. That's not love, Chet. That's betrayal. You deserve someone who chooses you. No question. Milo's words were a spark, cutting through Chester's fog. What are you going to do? Milo asked, and Chester's jaw tightened, his resolve forming. I need to know why. Then decide, he said, his voice steady, his heart a storm. Chester dug deeper, needing clarity before acting. He found James's profile, a 40-year-old attorney, charming, recently divorced, his post full of Claire's likes. A co-worker's blog mentioned their office chemistry, a public secret Chester had been blind to. Each clue was a weight, but it fueled him, his pain sharpening his strength. He journaled, his words raw. She loves him, but kept me. I'm worth more than that. The act was a release, a step toward decision. The confrontation with Claire was quiet, but piercing. One evening, as she cooked pasta, Chester sat at the table, his voice calm, his eyes unyielding. I know about James, Claire. The messages, the photos, your email. You love him, and you hid our engagement because you're ashamed or can't choose. Claire froze, the spoon clattering, her hazel eyes wide with dread. Chet, she started, but he raised a hand, his tone firm. No more lies. Why didn't you just leave me? His hurt was a current, pulling her under. Claire sank into a chair, tears falling. I didn't know how, she whispered. James, it's new, exciting, but I love you too. I was scared to lose you. Her confession was a partial truth, admitting the affair, but not its depth, her indecision a coward's choice. Chester's heart broke, her words a confirmation of his worthlessness in her eyes. "You lost me when you chose him," he said, his voice cracking, his dignity intact. "I can't be your fallback, Claire." The decision came that night, as Chester stood by the window, the rain a mirror to his tears. He couldn't forgive a love divided, a life built on shame. He'd end the engagement, walk away, not out of anger but self-respect. The choice was difficult, a severing of dreams, a garden, a home, but necessary. His journal entry was a vow. "I'm enough. I choose me." The audience could feel his pain, his strength, the suspense of what came next. Chester closed the journal, the maples swaying outside, his resolve a quiet fire, ready to face Claire one last time and reclaim his life, scarred but unbroken. The Briarwood sky was a soft bruise of purple, the December dusk settling over the town's snow-dusted maples. Chester stood in the living room of his and Claire's apartment, his broad shoulders squared, his green eyes steady behind his beard. A suitcase rested by the door, his belongings packed with the precision of a carpenter measuring a cut. At 35, Chester's thoughtful loyalty had been tested by Claire's affair with James Morgan, her unworn engagement ring a symbol of her shame and indecision. The truth, uncovered through messages and photos, had shattered his trust, but had also forged a quiet strength, a resolve to end the engagement with dignity and build a new life. Tonight, he'd face Claire one last time, his scars a map to an empowering future. The confrontation was a study in restraint, the audience feeling its emotional weight. Claire sat on the couch, her auburn hair loose, her hazel eyes red from crying, the ring, now worn, glinting on her finger, a belated gesture. Chester had spent the week planning his exit, his decision to leave cemented after her confession. "I love you, but I love him too." Her indecision, her choice to hide their engagement, was a betrayal he couldn't forgive. He'd found a new apartment, a small loft above a bookstore, and arranged to move tomorrow. Now, he needed closure, not for her, but for himself. "Claire," he began, his voice calm, a carpenter's steady hand, "this is over. I'm ending our engagement." She flinched, her hands twisting, but he pressed on, his words measured, heavy with truth. "You chose James, hid our ring, lived a lie because you were ashamed or couldn't decide. I deserved better. Honesty, loyalty, a partner who saw me." His eyes held hers, his hurt a quiet fire. "I loved you, but I loved myself enough to walk away." The ring on her finger was a mockery, and Chester's dignity was his shield, his strength a beacon in the dim room. Claire's tears fell, her voice a broken whisper. "Chet, I'm so sorry. I was confused, scared. I didn't mean to hurt you." Her apology was real but hollow, a plea for absolution he couldn't grant. "You hurt me every time you chose him," he said, his tone firm, not cruel. "You made your choice, Claire. Now I'm making mine." He slid his key onto the table, the metal a soft clink, a final note. She reached for him, her hand trembling, but he stepped back, his resolve unshaken. "I hope you find what you're looking for," he said, his voice softening, a farewell not of anger, but closure. He picked up his suitcase and left, the door closing with a quiet click, her sobs fading behind him. Chester's emotional growth was a quiet triumph, the audience connecting with his journey. The betrayal, Claire's affair, her hidden life, had gutted him, stripping away the future he'd envisioned. A garden, a home, a family. But in the wreckage, he'd found strength, a man who valued his worth, who chose dignity over despair. Forgiveness was his gift to himself, not her, a release of the pain that had caged him. His journal, now a daily ritual, captured his evolution. "I was broken, but I'm rebuilding. My life is mine to shape." The words were a vow, his scars a testament to resilience. His new chapter began in the loft, its slanted ceilings and book-scented air a canvas for renewal. The space was spare, a bed, a desk, his tools, but Chester filled it with purpose. He hung a single photo, not of Claire, but of a river he'd hiked, its waters a reminder of his own flow. He reconnected with old friends, starting with Milo, his carpenter mentor, whose gruff warmth was a constant. Over beers at a pub, Milo toasted him. "You're tougher than oak, Chet. Proud of you." The words warmed him, a bridge to a community he'd neglected. Chester also joined a hiking group, his long walks through Briarwood's frost-kissed trails a balm. The crunch of snow, the bite of cold, grounded him, each step a shedding of Claire's shadow. He met Lena, a photographer in the group, whose quiet humor sparked easy talks. Not romance, not yet, but friendship, a sign his heart could open again. His creative pursuit was woodworking, but now, with a twist, he began carving small sculptures, birds, leaves, selling them at a local market. The act, tactile and deliberate, was a mirror to his healing, each piece a mark of his strength. Journaling remained his anchor, pages filled with reflections. "I miss her, but not the lie. I'm learning who I am alone." The audience could feel his bittersweet peace, the pain of loss laced with pride in his growth. Claire's absence was a scar. News of her moving in with James reached him through gossip, a sting he let pass. But Chester's focus was forward. He volunteered at a community center, teaching kids to carve, their laughter a new rhythm in his life. On a crisp December evening, Chester stood on his loft's balcony, the town's lights twinkling below, the maples silver with snow. He held a carved sparrow, its wings smooth under his thumb, a gift for Lena's birthday. The river's memories surfaced, Claire's yes, now a distant echo, but it didn't break him. His growth was in the quiet, the choice to leave, the courage to rebuild, the strength to stand alone. "I'm not whole yet," his internal monologue mused, "but I'm enough." The thought was a lantern, its glow steady in the dark. He walked inside, setting the sparrow on his desk, the loft's warmth a contrast to the chill. The audience was left with his empowering resolve, a man who'd faced betrayal and emerged not broken, but carved anew. Chester's life was his own, shaped by his hands, its grain unique, its strength enduring. The unworn ring was a ghost, but Chester, thoughtful and loyal, was a craftsman of his future, his steps forward a quiet triumph, bittersweet but undeniably his own.